What's up, humans? Welcome to another episode of Shots from the Winchester podcast, brought to you by Greencastle Consulting, your nation's premier strategy execution firm. I'm your host, Al Green, and we're going to have a fun conversation today because we're going to be talking to Adam Holstein, who is the Vice President of Talent Management here at Greencastle. Right. Yeah. So let's just jump right in. So Adam, you're the Vice President of Talent Management here. And I know that, and first of all, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I know you have a lot to do with the talent that comes in here, the different consultants that come in here.
Yeah.
And we had a quick conversation briefly, probably like weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And you said, let's have a conversation about expectations for recruitment.
Yeah.
I thought that's a great conversation. That's a great idea. Mm-hmm. So let's just jump in before we talk about that. Let's talk about who you are, Adam Holstein, and give us a little idea of your journey getting here to Greencastle.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me on the podcast. It's something that I've thought about over the last couple of years here, and glad we finally were able to align on it.
Yeah.
But about me, first, I'm a dad. So I have two girls, 9 and 7, and then a 8-month-old son.
Wow,
so
congratulations.
Keeping us busy.
I bet. Yeah.
But going back to the beginning here is Wilmington, Delaware is where I was born and raised.
Really?
So Same not here. From too far. Oh, yeah, I didn't actually know that. Yeah.
That's great.
Went to St. Elizabeth's High School.
Okay.
Nice. And then I went to the University of Delaware, and that's when I got into Air Force ROTC there. Okay. And that's like kind of how that military, that's as we're getting down the path to coming to Greencastle. So after college, I did the about 4.5 years active duty in the Air Force.
Nice.
And I got out and was looking for what's the next thing to do. The first job I had was as a sales rep, medical sales role.
Okay.
Didn't really like that. It wasn't really what was for me. I really felt like I was missing a lot of that camaraderie. I really went from a job where I'm at the squadron level, a lot of people my age, a lot of we're mission focused, to being a sales rep where I have Pennsylvania, New Jersey, West Virginia, and I'm just on the road all the time, kind of by myself. So there was a lot I was missing in that role, and so I started to look for a job again, and I saw, there's this management consulting company called Greencastle where I want to live. Yeah. So I really pursued coming here. It took me a little time to get in. There was just 10 employees at the time.
What?
Yeah. So very different environment.
Yeah.
But that started back in 2015.
Okay.
I started Greencastle as an associate consultant.
Wow.
And have just worked in a lot of different roles and a lot of different projects over the last 8 years or so here. And was really on the billable consultant side of the house that whole time in different leadership roles over time until last September when I took on this role in talent management. So over time, as we've grown, as you've seen, we've been able to set up some additional departments. One was adding marketing a few years back and combining marketing and sales. And then really the next step has been setting up this proper talent department. So that's where we have the talent acquisition side, which we're talking about here today, recruiting. But also my section focuses on that training component too. So the talent development. And you see on our all hands meetings that we have that there's a big training component here on a monthly basis. So that's like the ongoing training for, as we would, call it in the military. But then there's also the onboarding. We have a pretty robust onboarding process as well these days, where there's about a month long of training that folks get and familiarization before they go forward to do the client work.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Like, you have a good long history here with Greencastle.
Yes.
Especially if you started here when there were 10 people and now there's over 100.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great.
I really have seen the evolution.
Yeah, for sure. You've seen it all the way from the bottom to the top here. That's awesome. That's really cool. I especially enjoy the fact that you're from Wilmington. I did not know that.
Yeah.
I was born in Wilmington. I'm not going to say when, but
I was listening to the Strathmire interview, and I would guess it was after he was born. But he's got a lot of years experience, very experienced gentleman there.
Absolutely, but that's fun. Yeah, I was in Delaware for quite some time. Did the sales route too.
Oh, did you really? Yeah.
Opposite of what you did, because I was in sales, and then I realized I needed to do something to get into school, so I went into the Army after that.
Yeah.
The sales thing took me up and down the East Coast, and I ended up in Jacksonville, where then I ended up like getting disillusioned with the people I was working with, and then ended up in North Carolina, where my mom was living at the time.
Oh, okay.
And then I joined in from Raleigh, North Carolina. They wanted me to be a parachute rigger. I said, I'm not returning for that.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm a generator mechanic guy. So yeah, that's great. That's cool. I like that commonality. So let's get into some ideas here. So when I start this conversation off with a lot of people, I tell them, especially with the audience, that we're a strategy execution firm.
Yeah.
Some people may not know what that is. We've had plenty of episodes. You can watch the episode with Joe and Eric that we talked about strategy execution there as well. But since we have Adam, let's have a conversation about what strategy execution is, because consulting is a broad term.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what area of management are we actually consulting in? What are we in? Yeah,
and I'm glad you started there, because we want to talk about the interview process here, and a lot of times that's something I'll notice is that folks are coming forward and they're like, I'll ask them, hey, what do you think it is that we do? And they'll kind of give a vague answer about consulting, which is fine. The big thing for me is I want to make sure they kind of understand what they're getting into, right?
Yeah.
So, I'd love to start there. A lot of times, like when I was before I came here, I thought of consultants, and I think stereotypically in my head, I was thinking about like a McKinsey consultant, right? Like coming in at the C-suite, and you're painting this like long range picture of this is where your industry's going, and this is where we'd recommend that you go. They have, they're such a gigantic company, right? They have like a footprint in so many different industries. They're really in a position to make those type of strategic advice and those types of things for their clients. That's not something that we're trying to compete at, is making that long range strategic recommendations.
Right.
But once those decisions are made, that's where the strategy execution comes into play, right? If a client wants to do something like build a data lake, right, so that they can take advantage of the business intelligence and data analytics or something like that,
right,
they make that decision really independent of Greencastle. But when they do, they say, oh, we're going to be investing, a vast amount of resources and time into this.
Right.
A lot of times they turn to experts for the implementation of that. And they'll need some consultation for how to approach it and how to do the implementation themselves. And that's really where Greencastle comes into play with that strategy execution and doing the implementation work.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that every single project that Greencastle ever works on is a gigantic initiative, but that's, sometimes we're getting to know new clients or we're in new departments.
Right.
But that's essentially when we're operating our best and doing, what it is we're really passionate about and care about for achieving success.
Yeah.
That's really where we're focused in.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a unique space to be, especially when you do have a lot of competition. When there's competition out there, but I think what makes us unique, especially as a strategy execution firm, is is the fact that we're 100% veteran owned and operated. Yeah. Veterans have a unique way of getting stuff done, and I think that's a strong component to what makes Greencastle excellent at what we do. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a great look. So what are some of the common mistakes that people might have in an interview? Like when they come in here, or just in general, maybe this might be helpful to somebody out in the audience there.
Yeah, I think, and this is probably not going to be earth shattering, but it's it's a lack of preparation. I think is a big common mistake that I'll see people make, and that's probably what I want to point at first. So I remember when I went through TAPS when I was getting out of the military, I got some of this general recommendation advice. People say, prepare your answers in the STAR format, situation, task, action, result.
Yeah.
And have it be neat and like kind of coherent of what it is you want to say, and have a whole series of like scenarios you want to get across those points.
Yeah.
So I really kind of have the expectation that people will have that. And a lot of people do, but I will see people that it doesn't really seem like they've put the time in to prepare those type of answers. And I think that's one of those things, like, what do you have that's like kind of within your control to manage? And that's something that folks have within their control. So having those stories ready, having them rehearsed, is really important. And I think one of the things that's interesting about our field is, if I were hiring someone to build, to do coding or to build whatever, to build widgets, right? Yeah. The interview itself is not that relatable to what they do on a day-to-day basis. But when you think about an interview from the standpoint of a consultant, this is something that's a lot of similar skill sets, right? Like you have to prepare ahead of time for a short block where you're going to have to be able to communicate clearly, where you're going to need to be able to, come off as friendly and likable and like someone that people want to work with and listen to, be able to kind of show some passion and show confidence. All the types of things that lead to a good interview are very similar to a lot of the skill sets that we use in consulting. So I would really like to see people demonstrate those, and a lot of that goes to that preparation component there. And so, absolutely on that, that's the one thing that I would probably recommend. And I would say a differentiator with some of the folks who do better with the preparation is also sometimes people come in, they say, oh, I was watching the podcast, I was watching the podcast, so I know kind of the lingo, and I heard Joe say this, and I heard Eric say that. And, that really makes people stand out. Now, I know that, maybe people are putting out, they're putting out hundreds of applications. So I can appreciate that maybe they don't have time to go deep on every company, but I certainly appreciate it when they do.
That's awesome. I look at it like, don't go into it half-ass. Yeah. It's either full ass or no ass. So if you're going to come in, don't make the mistake of coming in unprepared. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely the takeaway here. So that falls into expectations. What are some of the expectations of a potential GACer? If you don't know what GACer means, it means Greencastle Associates Consulting. It's basically, instead of like calling us employees, we're GACers. All right. Yeah. So as far as that goes, like a potential GACer coming in, what are the expectations for someone coming into this organization?
Yeah. So the expectations, so what would be your expectations, like your first 30, 60, 90 days? Is that that's
good
like
look.
that type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when you first come in, we give you a month now. And, I hate to, sound like an old timer back in my day. You can imagine when we were a company of 10 folks, it wasn't like, oh, hey, here's your month of training that you get beforehand. But we've learned, and we definitely want people to have that opportunity to transition, right? To take that military mindset, which is super valuable, right? And great skill sets that come from that. But sometimes it does take a little bit of time to say, okay, this is what we called it in the military, and this is what you talk about in the civilian world, right? Yeah. Or to just, even if you served years ago and you're coming from another civilian job, you need some time to understand what it is that Greencastle does and what our processes are. Right. So we have a pretty robust month-long process for that. That's really the expectation for those folks. After that, a lot of times we will move folks forward to the client teams that they'll be working with to go to billable work. That may be the case. In some cases, there will be some additional time where folks will work on internal initiatives using the GAC methods and processes for our own internal initiatives. It's basically as like a dry run before you go and do it for the clients.
That's smart. You're setting them up for success.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So that's either you're working on that internally, or you're going forward and doing it with the client work. But what we do once you go forward and you're meeting the client, we assign you to a team lead who's very much knowledgeable about the client itself and that client environment. It's going to help you along the way there. But we also assign a quality management coach as well. And their focus is more on the overall Greencastle methods and helping to coach you up on that. So we haven't really talked about our different centers of excellence and project management, change management, process improvement, and then data analytics. So you'll get a coach from one of those areas that's applicable to the role that you're filling. And they're really like kind of the experts in that area. They can help you, if you have questions about how to build a schedule or how to develop a business case, right? They can help you through that from a general Greencastle practice perspective, kind of independent of that client work, the client specifics.
That's really cool. I guess back in the olden days, I'll call it the olden days. This makes it so you're not being thrown to the wolves. Technically, right? Because now you have your team lead, you've got people around you, and everyone here is very team oriented. So you're not just in a valley of like, you're not alone. You're
absolutely.
You've got a lot of support. And that's a great look. And I think that's something that's also very unique about Greencastle.
Yeah, I'll just pause at just like a little story with that.
Oh yeah.
I have a client that I was speaking to, and which resource we were going to put on a particular initiative. And he says, Adam, I trust what you guys are doing. I call you guys the Green Machine because I'm not just getting Pat or Jim or whatever. I'm getting this whole team that's supportive of them and then supportive of me. And I know that if Pat doesn't know the answer, he's gonna find it, and he's gonna rely on the rest of the team to get the job done, essentially, right? So we've really taken on that after we heard that. I was like, oh, it's like
the Green
I
Machine.
Like that. I don't know.
Too.
I mean, you're the marketing person, so. But always liked hearing that.
Yeah. That's really cool. Now, I know we got into a conversation. We talked a little bit about how to stand out in an interview.
Yeah.
How to basically what would the mistakes would have been. What kind of mistakes are like. How does someone stand out in an interview? Like what is a trait that you're like, oh, this person is good?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of our job, and I guess I'll back up a little bit, is it is a difficult environment to get hired here, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of talent coming through, and we're starting from a pool of great veterans that already, it's like, I wish I could pick them all type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you stand out? And that could come in a variety of ways. But one of the ways is, I like to see people that really have those soft skills, that they can relate to people, that they can communicate a message easily, that they can, they say in politics a little bit like, the would you want to have a drink with them type of a thing, right? And that's a hard thing to teach. It's a hard thing for people to adapt to, but it is it's helpful to have that skill set as a bit of a differentiator. Being personable, and I think that can really help people. Now that there is folks can also differentiate themselves with their experiences, right? So we definitely love having that veteran experience. But if you're looking at a pool of candidates and everyone has really great veteran experience from their time in the military, sometimes you can differentiate yourself from your civilian experience that you've had as well. So we have some folks that have come in from other consulting companies that have had really practical experience there. That's been great. Jeremy will talk about, I was giving him a hard time a little bit earlier, but he'll talk about his experiences as being a police officer and how much that has really helped him to relate to people and how much he's worked with people over the years. And he speaks to how much that has led to some of his success, not just his time as a CSM, right? So it's hard to say one particular thing, but I do look for something that in your background that is going to make me feel like you're going to be successful in these ambiguous situations that we're in, and that you maybe hit the ground running a little bit faster than your peers. I'll also mention so much of our stuff, our work is in IT now. So if you have that in your military background or some other aspect of your background, that would be a really good thing to highlight. I just be like, okay, maybe another candidate would pick this up in 3 months, but maybe, you'll pick it up immediately.
Yeah.
And, that's just really useful for us and can be a differentiator.
That's great. It reminds me of when I chose to go in as a 52 Delta in the Army and as a generator mechanic. I grew up working on cars with my dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He had a 67 Buick Skylark.
Yeah.
As a kid, that's a beautiful car. We shining the crickers and everything like that. So I had engine experience. I came out of vocational school, Holstein Votech. I came out of there with an electrical degree. So I thought, I just put those two things together and I'm going to sail through the Army. So having those skills and having that background and knowing that makes it easier for you when you come into a situation like this.
And was that your experience? Were you kind of ahead of your peers in tech school and things like that?
Somewhat. I understood relays. I understood circuit boards. I understood how to read schematics. Which definitely put me ahead of a lot of them, especially when the schematic classes came up and everybody I was like, I already know what to do here, which is good, and having that confidence in yourself by having those skills, I think that helps you when you move into a situation like this, especially, that's a good conversation, or I should say a good segue into what are some of the more transferable skills from the military that'll be helpful for here?
And I think this is a really good point. The military is not totally unique in this, but I think it is somewhat unique in that how much when you're in your military career, you're doing different roles constantly.
All the time.
You're just like, so that's like in my 4 years, I was in a different role every year, right? Yeah. And then a lot of us, a lot of us, meaning Greencastle, didn't just do, their 4 years. They maybe were in their 8 or 20 years, so they were constantly moving, meeting all new people, and even when you're in one place, all the people around you are constantly shifting.
Yeah.
So it's a somewhat unique environment. That's a big challenge of the military, is the turnover. And then you think about the consulting world. I really left an environment in the Air Force where everything was changing and came to the same thing, right? I'll be on a project for 3 months or 6 months or a year, but really I don't think I've spent more than a year in one particular role since I've been at Greencastle, right? And sometimes in maybe I would say like a normal job, I'd maybe be working with at some of the client sites and be like, I've been doing, I would talk to folks and say, I've been doing this job for 7 years. Yeah, I'm getting bored. And it's like, wow, you've been doing one job for 7 years. Like that, like we don't really have that experience in the military. So getting back to your previous conversation, I feel like we come in with that military experience being ready to excel in these ambiguous situations, constant turnover, hit the ground running, learn really quickly, and then be able to get the job done. Right. That mission-focused mentality as well is something that I think is really important for consultants. And when you're doing that strategy execution work, that is something that's really effective as well, and helps us, I think, adapt to take those military skills. Think about like how you'd be speaking to a general would be making these strategy decisions, right? Like not really. We don't have many generals around here at Greencastle, right? But in our experiences as higher level enlisted folks or as CGOs or FGOs, we're getting this strategic direction, and then we're going out and we have to figure out a way to execute it, and it's not. We have to figure out a way to make excuses and things like that, right? It's like we have to be able to get the job done. Right. So that we're trained for that. A lot of us have had that experience in the military. Right. That puts us in a position where we really, once we get familiar with the terms and things like that, we can really add value quickly to the environments that we see in the civilian world.
That's cool. Yeah, that's one of the bigger questions. I think a lot of people who are on here, who are especially veterans, or people who are looking to get out of service soon, trying to figure out how to turn those skills that they've been using for 3, 6, 9 years in the military into something that's actionable for a civilian career now that they're out, you know, and finding purpose again. It's that realization, I think, when it comes down to it, like what did you used to do? And then I think as far as Greencastle is concerned, a lot of that structure is similar to what we did in the service.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I often see that it's not exactly the same for everyone.
Yeah.
But there's something that you were very proficient at in your career and that you learned that's going to be applicable in the situation at Greencastle and in other fields as well. I would say for me, so my field in the Air Force is missile warning. And that's very, very checklist driven, very process driven. It's been connected with our missileers in the Air Force, like that career field is had a lot of personnel who were the folks that are in the silos with controlling our ICBMs, and that's very checklist driven as well.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
So, you know, for me, that was something that every aspect of the military isn't super checklist driven, right?
Yeah.
There's definitely, you know, if you're an infantry officer in the Army, you know, a checklist mentality might not be as appropriate as an ICBM operator. But that type of mentality, that is something that often is the case. So, you know, of the teams and the opportunities that I had at Greencastle was like, I have this very process-oriented mindset, and a lot of this had to do with what I learned in the military, and this constant churn of personnel coming through also demanded, you know, very clear expectations, very clear processes, and that was just, you know, one thing that I could apply. But I guess I would just say to veterans that are transitioning, you know, don't be so literal about, you know, you're going to be on an IT project or something like that. Think about, you know, what are, you know, the broader skill sets that you developed over this time, your time in the military, and how you can help ultimately lead to these project successes. And I think you'll be surprised at what you come up with.
That's great. That's great advice, especially for the people out there. And if you're out there and you're looking to find a way to transition out, there's a skill bridge program in a lot of different locations, and we especially have one here, which is a great way to get in and figure out, is consulting for you. So definitely check that out. I want to do something fun. All right, so we're going to do what I call this or that. So I'm just going to throw some questions at you. I did this with Jeremy last week, and it was fun. Yeah, had a good old time with this. All right, so this or that, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
You're a coffee guy.
Definitely coffee. Have you seen me around the office? I might win the coffee award. I'm not sure.
I wanted to. I when I met my wife, she's a avid coffee drinker, so I started like, I'm gonna go you know, start drinking coffee. Just started destroying my stomach. So I've always been a tea guy. So
nice.
That's my thing.
It would probably be better if I was a tea person, honestly. And I've tried to switch to tea a couple times, like switch to green tea, I always end up back drinking a lot of coffee. So.
And the caffeine level and the taste, the flavor is like, the profiles are totally different.
It is, and that's just like, I end up missing it. And I like, well, maybe I'll have one cup, and then, you know. There's worse vices.
Exactly. I was like, compared to coffee, tea is like flavored water. Which it literally is. Okay, so summer or winter?
Summer. Definitely summer. And I think it's the sun, you know, like the sunny days, especially in the Northeast here. That, you know, I spent a short amount of time in California in the Air Force at Vandenberg Air Force Base for 5 months. And I was there over the winter. And I was surprised at how much I liked how much sun there was every day. Like, I was like, this is pretty awesome. So I definitely miss that in the wintertime.
Definitely, I'm a summer guy too. Like wintertime, as soon as my toes get cold or my ears get cold, I'm out. And I can't do it. Coming back in the house.
So you're gonna move down to Florida at some point?
I don't know. I was thinking about Florida is a fun place, but like maybe going a little bit further south or maybe a little bit further west. You know, I found a fondness for Santa Fe.
Okay.
New Mexico.
No, it's beautiful out there too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. The only thing I'm a little weary about are scorpions. Trading spiders for scorpions,
Yeah.
like the poisonous scorpions, is like okay. But
There's always some kind of a trade-off.
Yeah, there's some kind of a trade-off. That's why I'm not going to Australia.
Yeah.
It's like everything there kills you.
Yeah.
Dogs or cats?
I would probably prefer a dog, but I've never had one. So
you
we
never
do
had
have
dogs?
cats,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
and I like cats, but it's more because they're so much more practical. So
Yeah. You can leave them there. You can go away for a day or two. They'll come back and still be okay.
And with the kids, we've always just been like, we can't handle a dog.
The dog,
right now.
yeah.
But it's on the agenda. At some point. Yeah.
They're a lot of energy, but they're a lot of fun too. So reading or audiobooks?
I do like audiobooks. I prefer audiobooks. It's hard to have enough time to consume as many books and podcasts and things as I like to do.
Yeah.
That way if I'm doing yard work, I'm doing the dishes, or I'm cooking or something like that, I can be listening to books and things.
Yeah. I love that. Whenever I'm doing the dishes or doing laundry or something like that, I have a podcast going. And then now, especially running a podcast, it's like even better because now I'm like almost studying at the same time.
Yes.
That's always a good look. So yeah, I'm an audio person. I honestly, I used to read books all the time. But as I got older, I'm like, I don't know if it's eyes are tired or if it's just like, I don't know. I prefer to just listen to it if I can, I might be spoiled by podcasts as well in that way.
Yeah, I think that there might be a little bit of that. And it's, where I just feel like we're all so busy, that it's just, we're just always trying to cram everything in. Yeah. And I certainly like reading before bed. That's nice. And that
I read articles all the time.
Yeah.
I'm always reading articles. Like if there's especially tech articles and new incoming things from AI. I'm always reading those and watching the videos that accompany them. And, that's my reading for enjoyment, at least there. Are you a morning person or a night person?
I am a night person.
Yeah.
I would like to be a morning person. I've never really pulled it off. I have thoughts about how to do that. I know. I don't know if you've heard of the Huberman podcast.
No,
there's some
kind
of like a health and wellness, very popular health and wellness podcast.
Yeah,
that's Stanford professor.
Oh,
yeah, he's got some advice that I might try to do to swing to being a morning person. But I've always like, if I don't have to wake up, I slowly start to wake up, go to sleep a little bit later.
Yeah. This is a very polarizing question. So, trigger warning for everyone. Okay, ready? Android or iPhone?
So I'm an iPhone user.
Your iPhone? Yeah.
iPhone.
Same.
I've thought about that because, I don't know that Apple always treats us the best. I mean, everything's like kind of a little bit more expensive for seemingly the same things. But like when I got my first smartphone after college, what like most people did, like 2010, 2012 time frame.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was just like you could count on Apple to work, right? And whereas other stuff was just like a mess, and it would be intuitive and clean, and I have continued to like that aspect of it. But they also like, I'm so committed now. Like how could I switch if I wanted to? And I would say in my like bubble of friends and family, it's mostly iPhone too, so that plays a part.
Yeah, I had Android for the longest time, and honestly, it wasn't until 2020 that I got an iPhone.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they were always at least a year or two ahead when it came to the technology. So I was doing things on my Android phone that just wasn't available on the iPhone.
Yes.
For a long time, there wasn't any dictation. So you couldn't hit the little microphone and speak into it and like speak into your text messages. And
so you felt like you were going back in time a little bit when you got your iPhone? Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
only until dictation came.
Yeah,
So when
yeah.
dictation came,
Okay.
I was like, okay, I'll switch.
Oh, I see. You're waiting for that. Yeah.
Because I'm avid about talking into my phone.
Okay.
But then I have to make sure that it doesn't say something silly or crazy,
Right,
because like
right.
you can look at it, if you don't check
Yeah.
it and just send it, it'll say all kinds of stuff that you don't want people to, it gets weird. So it's cool because we don't really get a chance to like sit here for as long as we have to have a conversation like this. So that's fun to note that you came from Delaware. I didn't know you were in Delaware. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in the Army, people were like, Delaware?
Yeah.
You know? So I just told people I'm from Philly.
You
So
do get that. Yeah, you do get that.
made it easier.
That blank stare sometimes from folks.
Like it's the first state. Come on, guys. Like, you don't know your 13
like,
colonies?
But what state are you from?
Exactly.
Like,
where is Delaware? Is that a city?
Like, it's Pennsylvania.
Yeah, exactly. I just gave up. I'm like, all right, whatever, guys. Well, Adam Holstein, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
Yes, definitely. Appreciate the knowledge, appreciate all the content that you gave us. And hopefully if you're out there and you're listening to this conversation, that you got something from this. And especially if you're a veteran or somebody that's coming out of the service and you're looking at Greencastle for a job or anything like that, definitely pay attention to this episode and check in on our website. It's greencastleconsulting.com for any more information on that. So on behalf of Greencastle Consulting, your nation's premier strategy execution firm, I'm your host, Al Green, Adam Holstein. And Adam, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Al.
And we'll see you in the next episode.